Hi, everyone. As you know, my name is Carmen Mazzara. I serve as Executive Director of APSIA, the Association of Professional Schools of International Affairs. We're the community for graduate schools worldwide that specialize in international affairs. And in particular, we are home to the Public and International Service Advisor Network. And we're so glad to see so many PISA advisors here as part of our ongoing series of briefings on wonderful, important opportunities for your students. Today's conversation is going to be about the Gilman Scholarship, and we are delighted to have Courtney Castillo here to share that with us. And also, we're delighted to have a Gilman alum with us. Actually, not just one, but two. The APSIA team is delighted to have a Gilman and Fulbright alum, Brittany Chor, that many of you hear from on a regular basis. So if you need to pick the brains of those who've been through Gilman in lots of different ways, we have some great expertise here for you today. We hope we will see you at future APSIA webinars. This is part of a longer series that we run. Next Thursday, November 3rd, we have a briefing on the brand spanking new William Clark Diplomatic Security Fellowship, so please check your email for that link. Please also be sure to check your inbox for all sorts of opportunities that we share throughout the year as ways to support you in bringing this great information to your students. A recording will be available on the APSIA YouTube page as soon as we can get it up after this webinar is finished. And as we go through, if you have any technical issues, please feel free to let me or Brittany know. And if you have any great questions for our speakers, you can put those in the chat and we'll get to those after the presentation. So with that, I'm delighted to invite Courtney to share all of the great opportunities that Gilman provides with us. Courtney, please. You are on mute, friend.
You know, I love Zoom. Thanks so much, Carmen. It's great to be here. I'm Courtney Castillo, and I'm the Campus Liaison and Selection Manager for the Gilman Scholarship Program. And as Carmen mentioned, I'm also joined today by a Gilman Alumni Ambassador, Nathaniel Sandoval. You'll hear from him after I'm done speaking and talking your ear off. But I'm here to talk to you about the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship Program, which is a program of the U.S. Department of State with funding provided by the U.S. government. And it has been administered by the Institute of International Education since the program's inception in 2001. Now, the Gilman Scholarship Program has become the largest U.S. undergraduate scholarship program that is supporting U.S. students of high financial need to participate in study abroad programs and international internships. So I'm going to share more about the program. I'm just going to share the agenda with you. We'll talk about the program itself and eligibility, along with our deadlines and timelines for the application. We'll talk about the application itself, how you can be involved as a Gilman advisor, ways you can promote the program. We'll hear from Nathaniel, and then we'll have time for Q&A. So to go over the Gilman program eligibility, like I mentioned before, it is sponsored by the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, or ECA, in the U.S. Department of State. And ECA leads a wide range of academic, professional, and cultural exchanges with the goal of increasing mutual understanding and respect between the people of the United States and the people of other countries. And the Gilman Scholarship is just one of the many programs sponsored by ECA. And Gilman Scholars become a part of a network of approximately 40,000 people who participate in ECA programs every year. Now, the Gilman program is within the Office of USA Study Abroad, and the Study Abroad office is committed to shaping and sustaining a more peaceful, prosperous, and just world by increasing and diversifying participation in study abroad. So we have their websites here linked, and we encourage you to check those out for more information. And so I wanted to just share some stats about the Gilman program's impact from 2020 to 2021. Yes, we're still awarding scholarships to study or intern abroad during the 2020-2021. Some folks were doing virtual programs, which you'll hear a little bit more about that coming up. But students disclosed 58% of recipients being first-generation college students, 69% representing racial or ethnic minority groups, and 69% coming from rural or small towns. This is, I think, great in terms of helping to diversify the population of students who study and intern abroad. And so since the inception of the program, though, we've offered over 34,000 U.S. undergraduates scholarships to study abroad or intern abroad, and they have gone to over 150 countries around the world, and they represent over 1,300 US institutions. I think it's a lot. I don't think I could even name 100 or 200. So the Gilman Scholarship is a scholarship that is up to $5,000 for students to use for programs happening in the fall, spring, summer, winter, academic year, even more than that, J term, spring break, even short term programs. So they can receive up to $5,000 to use toward program costs and related expenses like tuition and fees, room and board, books, local transportation, health insurance, international airfare, passports, even visa costs. And award amounts, they do vary depending on student need and the strength of their application and the cost of the program, but students can apply to study abroad or intern abroad in any of these academic terms. And so for the entire academic year, we are awarding over 3,000 scholarships. That also includes the awards for the Gilman-McCain Scholarship, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and awards that are associated with our global partners, which I'll share more about too. And so if a student is studying a critical need language in a location in which it's predominantly spoken, they can submit an optional essay to be considered for up to an additional $3,000 to study that language in a location in which it's predominantly spoken. So that's a total of up to $8,000 actually to study or intern abroad for these critical need languages. And so the critical need language are listed here on the screen. They're also on our website if you have any questions about that. But in addition to receiving the additional $3,000, up to $3,000, students who receive the Critical Need Language Award are also offered the opportunity to take the ACTFL Oral Proficiency Interview. And this test and the results serve both as an evaluation measure of the award and as a credential to the award recipient. So it's pretty cool that they have that option as well. So in order to be eligible for the Gilman Scholarship, applicants must be a US citizen or national by the time their abroad program starts. They need to be undergraduate students, not having completed their undergraduate degree prior to program start. They also need to receive federal Pell Grant funds, either at the time of application or while they're abroad. Doesn't have to be both, but if it's both, that's great, but it has to be at least one. They need to be participating in programs that are eligible for academic credit. They're not required to transfer any of that credit back over to their institutions, but essentially if they wanted to receive academic credit for what they're doing abroad, it needs to be eligible for that. And then also the program is sponsored by the State Department, and our State Department has great travel warnings for us to let us know safety of locations that we want to go to. So programs must be in countries or areas with an overall travel advisory of levels 1 or 2. And we do have an exceptional approved list on our website for level 3 locations. Okay, and so now I want to share about the Gilman-McCain Scholarship. The Gilman-McCain Scholarship is also a part of the Gilman Scholarship. It's the U.S. Department of State's Gilman-McCain Scholarship for child or spousal dependents of active or activated military personnel. And so this is a $5,000 scholarship, flat $5,000 for dependents, child or spouse of active or activated U.S. military personnel. And so that requirement of active or activated needs to be at the time of application or while the student is abroad. So this Gilman-McCain Scholarship was developed under the framework of the Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarship Program, and it's called the John McCain International Scholarship for the Children or Spouses of Military Families, lovingly known as the Gilman-McCain Scholarship. So this is open to eligible students that are enrolled at accredited U.S. colleges and universities who receive any type of Title IV federal financial aid. And so you can see the other eligibility requirements are quite similar for the Gilman Scholarship that I just shared about, except for the requirement that the applicant is a child or spouse dependent of an active or activated military personnel and receiving any type of Title IV federal financial aid. So here we have listed as well the different areas of the U.S. military that could be considered for active or activated. As long as the applicant is a dependent, child, or spouse, they would be eligible for the Gilman-McCain Scholarship. And so I mentioned too that we are also awarding partnership awards to students. And so I just want to highlight our global partners that support study in Portugal, Wales, Israel, France, New Zealand, Germany, and on Taiwan. Um, there's no separate application for a partner award. Um, we have more information about our partners on our partnerships page. So if you have students that are interested in going to any of these locations, also encourage them to apply, as our partners have given additional funding to support Gilman eligible students to study in their locations. Now for the scholarship program, we have two deadlines, and I'll show you the timeline for those. We have an application that opens in the fall, and we just closed it, and an application that will open in the spring. So up here, first, our timeline is for the March 2023 deadline. Can't believe we're already talking about 2023. And so this application will open mid-January. Applicants have until March 9th, 2023 to submit their application, and the application closes at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. So depending on where you are, your students may have a little bit more time or a little less time, but that is the time that the application will close. And advisors have to certify some program information and eligibility information, and they have 1 week from the student deadline to get those certifications in. So for the March 2023 deadline, the programs that are eligible for this cycle start May 1st, 2023, all the way through starting April 30th, 2024. So that could capture the summer of 2023, fall of 2023, winter 2024, spring 2024, academic year 2023-24. You can, I guess, don't need to say more than that for the terms. And then our second application opening is for the fall, or it could be the first one, depending on how you want to see the calendar. But our next fall application will open mid-August. That is for our October 2023 deadline. And so you can see here, applicants have until October 3rd to submit their application by 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, and advisors have 1 week from then to certify the eligibility details. And I'll actually go over what we ask advisors to certify in a few slides. And so you'll notice too, for this application deadline, that program starts that are eligible are from December 1st through October 31st, 2024. So there is overlap between both of these deadlines. So if you have a student that wants to apply for the Gilman Scholarship and they say they apply in either of them and they are not selected, if their program is still eligible for the abroad program start window, they can reapply, and there's no negative impact on their application if they do decide to do that. And so we just encourage students to try, if they didn't get it the first time, to get Gilman. So the application itself, I want to walk through the components of that. So first, it's basically broken up here in 2 steps. So there's the student application and then the advisor certification. Now, on the student's application, we need to know some information. So they will find a program abroad that meets their professional career goals. We are not a program abroad for them, just a funding opportunity and additional programmatic information, but in terms of like actual courses, that's not quite what Gilman does. But so students will have to find an abroad program that they are interested in participating in. It could be run by your institution, it could be run by a third party, it could be a partner institution, or even a direct enrollment, depending on what is optional and available for them. The student application is comprised of a few essays, which I'll go over in the next few slides, as well as transcripts from their currently enrolled institution and any other institutions in which they were degree-seeking students. They would provide those transcripts. And then students have to select 2 advisors to certify their program details and eligibility information. So that leads on to the second step of the application, which is the certification by advisors. Both study abroad advisor and financial aid advisor have separate information that they're confirming for the student's application, and I'll go over that shortly. But to touch on the essays that students have, we have 3 that are required. So the first required essay is the statement of purpose essay. And in the statement of purpose essay, this is really the student's personal interview on, we'll say, electronic paper. Here, we want the students to talk about who they are, what program they're doing abroad, and how that really meets their academic, professional, and personal goals, tying it all together for the selection panelists. If there are any challenges that the student faced, we encourage them to share how they've met the challenges or how they're working through them and how that's shaped who they are, where they're going. And so the statement of purpose essay is required, and we do have questions on our website as well as within the application itself that students are encouraged to answer as part of the prompt. And so you can find these on our website, but they're summed up here in terms of what we're looking for, what we're getting at. And so um, the character limit for this essay is 7,000 characters. If you have writing centers that you work with on campus, you can certainly provide the prompts for the Gilman essays to them because they haven't changed in quite some time. So that's the first essay that is required. Our second essay is a community impact essay, and it's about building mutual understanding. And so while students are abroad, whether they're doing a study abroad program or they're participating in an international internship, they're making connections. And we want to know, what does it mean to them to be a US citizen abroad, how they're going to seek opportunities to be culturally engaged, and how they're going to seek opportunities to have meaningful interactions with the people that they're going to be meeting and in the environment in which they'll be studying or interning in. So this is kind of a difficult essay for some students. I know it gets them to think a little bit outside the box, but it takes them a little bit deeper into thinking about their abroad experience, how they are representing not only themselves, but the communities from which they're coming, and just what they're hoping to learn from the communities that they'll be a part of. And so this required essay is 3,000 character maximum. And we also have additional questions on our website and within the application for students to answer. Now, the third required essay is also a community impact essay. And when students return from their program abroad, Gilman Scholars, they're required to give back to either their home community, their home institution, to some community in which they're a part of. We are wanting them to share about their experience abroad and encourage others to also study or intern abroad. And so we want to know how students will be citizen diplomats while they're abroad. That's kind of tying back from the Building Mutual Understanding essay, but how they're going to give back by inspiring others in their communities. We ask them to design a plan of action. So in this essay, we ask, who's the audience they're reaching out to? What tools do they need or do they have to use to reach out to this group? And what timeline do they have to complete this project? So sometimes students will have really elaborate projects, proposals, and that's great. We want to know how feasible they are because we do want students, they're required to complete these projects. If they're working with groups already on campus, maybe they want to partner with you, their APSIA advisor, to spread the word to the community on their campus. We highly encourage that. So presentations are great. Peer-to-peer outreach is extremely effective, we find, um, versus an older person like me trying to talk to students to get them to go abroad. So we really do encourage students to utilize this opportunity of their follow-on service project proposal to dig deep into what kind of community groups they're already a part of. They don't really have to reinvent the wheel and make a whole new group of friends or people. They can look right where they are. So that's something to encourage your students to do when it comes to thinking about how they're going to give back and the communities they're reaching out to. And so I mentioned the Critical Need Language Award and how students have an optional essay in order to be considered for that. And so just want to touch on that here. This is an optional essay for students studying a critical need language in a location in which is predominantly spoken. And so we have additional questions for this prompt on our website and within the application itself, but asking the student why they're studying this critical need language, what is their commitment to proficiency in improving their language ability, how it relates to their academic or career goals, and just explaining more on that front. So this essay is a shorter essay. The character limit is 2,000 characters for that, but it's also optional. So if a student that you are working with wants to study a critical need language, but they in a location which it's predominantly spoken, but they don't want to apply for the critical need language award, they don't have to. So this is an optional essay. But if they don't submit this essay, they're not in in consideration for that additional funding. So that also makes sense, yeah. So I'm talking a lot about the essays, and I want to share more about our selection criteria, because this criteria is set forth by the State Department, by the Gilman sponsors. And so this is how applicants are evaluated in whether or not they're recommended for the scholarship. And so the first selection criteria that we have is the impact of program and destination on a student's academic and career trajectory. So we want students to really connect the dots for what they're doing abroad and how that's going to impact them. That the best way for students to do that is through their statement of purpose essay. And so selection panelists, they're not able to make assumptions about students or their programs. So really encouraging your students to make it clear the impact of their program and location where they're going to on their academic and career trajectories. We want to know more about the community impact that students going to have abroad and when they return home. So that's that second essay that I talked to you about, especially actually the second and third ones about making connections and being a citizen diplomat while they're abroad and while they're after they return back. Another point is academic preparedness. So this is the first time we're talking academics here on the presentation. And so I want to clarify there's no GPA requirement for the Gilman Scholarship. But what is important is that a student will be academically successful while they're abroad. So I'll kind of backtrack a little bit on this. And that's to say, I'll give an example of my own self, thinking that when I started undergrad, I was going to be a great doctor, an amazing physician. I think I could still be one, but my grades and studies in the sciences just weren't cutting it. But unfortunately, my grades would show, my transcript would show that, hey, in my first 2 years, I didn't do so hot. But did that mean that I was a bad student or not academically prepared? Not really, because once I started taking classes in my major, that's where I was very proud to show the A's and, you know, the academic success. So if you have students that had a little bit of a rough start, that's okay. For the Gilman program, we want to know how they'll be successful while they're abroad. So in that statement of purpose essay, students can address any challenges they might have faced, and academic challenges are certainly not off the table. So they could address any challenges they face academically, but also address how they would be prepared to be abroad. So like I mentioned, panelists, when they're reviewing these applications, they can't make assumptions. So they could see, oh, okay, Courtney actually decided that she's a French major in her French classes, she's doing awesome in compared to her physics and chemistry classes. They can see those things, but we really want the students, when they're writing their statement of purpose essays, to draw those lines as well. And if it's not apparent that they're a strong academic student, they can explain how they will be successful academically while they're abroad. And also, we look at the diversity of background and experience of students. And so every student is unique and they have their own experiences to share. And like I said, also several times now, panelists can't make any assumptions about the applicants. And so if students are willing to talk about what makes them unique, what they would like folks to know about them and how they're helping to diversify study abroad, we encourage them to share that about their diversity of background and experience. They can do that in the statement of purpose essay. That's probably the most the easiest way to do it, but they can also weave it into their building mutual understanding essays as well. And then if students are applying for that critical need language award, we would evaluate their commitment to proficiency in the critical need language. And so I gave you a high overview of the selection criteria here, but it's also on our website. We're not hiding anything from you all, so you can feel free to check that out as well. And so you've heard about the Gilman Scholarship Program, what we're looking for, what students have to submit, and so how can you get involved? Yeah, I know that's what you were asking. So I will just share with you now. We have different roles for advisors, and certifying advisors, they certify application details for us. So we have 2 certifying advisors, and that's a study abroad advisor and a financial aid advisor. Study abroad advisors will be individuals who are either faculty or staff at a U.S. institution of higher education who can confirm a student is in good academic standing at the institution. They have accurate information about the student's program abroad. they would also be able to confirm that the program the student is doing abroad is eligible for academic credit. They can confirm the cost of the student's program abroad and also check on the travel advisory levels of the student's location to which they want to study. And so that is the information that we would need for certification from a study abroad advisor. Now, you might be thinking, like, I could do this, but I'm not technically in study abroad at my institution, and that's totally okay. As long as you're working with your student and can confirm this information and you are an employee of the institution, you could be a certifying advisor for study abroad. Now, the next certifying advisor certifies financial aid details. So this, you need to have access to a student's financial aid record in order to certify the financial aid information. And so I mentioned way many slides ago that students need to be receiving the federal Pell Grant at the time of application or while they're abroad. So financial aid certifiers will let us know yes or no, or I don't have this information right now. I'm not able to disclose this information right now to you about the student's Pell Grant status. If a student is applying for the Gilman-McCain Scholarship, that funding piece is any type of Title IV federal financial aid. So similarly, we ask financial aid advisors to certify the Title IV funding details. And then financial aid advisors will also certify the amount or estimated or final of aid that's eligible for the student's program abroad. It would actually be what's applied to the program abroad. Sometimes the financial aid certifications are a little bit more tricky with the timing of FAFSA or just disbursement or even enrollment. So we understand this might be a little tricky, but essentially these two certifications will help us know if the student is eligible for the Gilman Scholarship. Okay, so maybe neither of these roles interests you or fits you, and that's okay. If you would still like to be a part of the Gilman Scholarship Program and work with applicants from your institution, you can be a non-certifying advisor. And so non-certifying advisors still have access to student applications, data on students who were offered the scholarship, but you just don't have the opportunity or to certify applications. So we hope that after today, you'll be interested in promoting the Gilman Scholarship on your campus and that you'll sign up to be an advisor, whether it's certifying or non-certifying with us, and encourage some of your colleagues to get involved as well. So along those same lines, I just want to talk to you about promoting the Gilman Scholarship Program. And we are very active on social media. You can feel free to reshare, repost, whatever the word is for that platform, what we're sharing. We've found, especially since 2020, virtual information sessions and virtual advising appointments are a hit with students, though in person is still great too. I wish I was face to face with you all right now. I think that would be so great, but grateful also for this platform that we have to come virtually. And we also have many email templates and resources that y'all can utilize on our website as well. And so there are many offices on your campus, and we just have a few here who you may consider reaching out to if they're available, but just to share about the Gilman Scholarship. So we really like to partner study abroad and financial aid. Oftentimes financial aid officers have information that they can either share or maybe they can share information out to the Pell Grant students at your institution about Gilman. So connecting with those folks is really beneficial. And like I mentioned previously, sharing essay information with the writing center if you have one on your campus, and students who are interested in language learning, maybe your language departments or professors would be a great connection point to promote the scholarship as well. The Multicultural Center, and the list goes on, but we really encourage you to share more about the Gilman Scholarship Program. I'm happy to connect with you all via email and set up other presentations if you'd like to for folks on your campus to get the word out and just encourage more students to study and intern abroad who may not otherwise have had the opportunity due to financial constraints. And so for advisors, we have a Facebook group. If you're on Facebook, we encourage you to join our campus community, but also here are two of the other major handles we're on for social media. Feel free to follow us, like our information and our details, but also it's okay if you just want to be a bystander and see what we're about. But that's it from me at this point. I am going to hand things over to our Gilman Alumni Ambassador, Nathaniel. And yeah, take it away.
Awesome. So hello, everyone. My name is Nathaniel. I received my Gilman back in 2020, and I'm currently a Gilman Alumni Ambassador, and I'm actually the first Alumni Ambassador at my home institute at the University of Rhode Island. I graduated back in 2021, and currently I am a Clifton Strings coach for an organization here in Rhode Island known as Leadership Rhode Island, and I'm actually transitioning out of a other position that I had with Give Volunteers as a global engagement representative. And this really consisted of being able to speak to students about a lot of the volunteer programs that we've been able to have. And I've also been working on being able to introduce the Gilman Scholarship to Give Volunteers because of some of the programs that they have to offer that students will be able to receive academic credit in altogether. So been able to do a lot of work with that. But to talk a little bit more just about my Gilman Scholarship experience, I came across the Gilman during my freshman year when one of the advisors that I actually worked with, Tom Hobson, was doing an info session. And I was always curious about what studying abroad or just traveling abroad would really look like during my undergrad. So it was always in the back of my head, but I remember a little bit in the beginning of my senior year, I started taking steps to actually apply for the Gilman and being able to just travel abroad and study actually in Barcelona, Spain. So I essentially lived in the International Center at the University of Rhode Island, and I worked with various advisors on my essays, my entire application, and just really utilized a lot of the peers to work with me on just being able to revise my essays and really learn more about how I can just tell my story and really be able to apply for the Gilman and eventually be able to go abroad altogether. But once I submitted my application, about, I would say, 3 to about 4 weeks later is when the pandemic happened, unfortunately. And then the initial plans that I had during the time were ultimately canceled. But then I was able to see a little bit more about what my journey with Gilman would actually look like. So I remember the beginning of July receiving an email from Gilman saying that I was congratulated for actually receiving the scholarship. And it was a little bittersweet because my initial plans to study abroad had been canceled, but I was still happy to see all the work that I put into this application actually come into fruition and being able to receive the scholarship altogether. So I participated in a virtual program because it was either participate into this program or lose my Gilman Scholarship completely. So I worked with an investment consulting firm out in Barcelona, Spain, and a lot of my work consisted on doing a lot of different types of outreach and working with my supervisor on different social media and outreach strategies, and really trying to take advantage of just this opportunity to be able to use my Gilman and also the additional benefits of just being a alumni of the Gilman Scholarship altogether. But now I am a Gilman Alumni Ambassador, just representing Gilman in the best possible way that I can, and also pursuing one of the other cultural exchange programs that they have to offer, which is the Fulbright program, and being able to ultimately teach English abroad, which is something I'm really looking forward to altogether. So fingers crossed on that. But some of the Gilman alumni benefits that I want to talk a little bit more about is the non-competitive eligibility. And this focuses more on alumni of like the Gilman program being eligible for 12 months of non-competitive eligibility hiring status with the federal government. So this particular time period would actually start on a Gilman scholar's very last day of them either studying or interning abroad. And there's also the Gilman Scholar Network, which is kind of like a social platform for Gilman scholars and alumni to be able to connect and network with one another. And then there is the Gilman Alumni Ambassador Program. And this is kind of like a 1-year program of being able to officially be a representative for the U.S. Department of State for the Gilman International Scholarship Program, and really just being able to represent Gilman in the best possible way with hosting presentations, events, doing workshops, and working closely with different community members and even maybe your home institute if that's something that aligns with that as well. And then there's also seminars and career workshops. And this is, again, like a great way to be able to take advantage of these events and learn a little bit more about how you can network and really share kind of your experience with other Gilman scholars and alumni, and really just a way to just really connect with a lot of different young professionals all together. And then there's this skill development aspect to it. So really being able to take all the skills that you've learned from during your time abroad and really being able to like implement that into a lot of the different things you may be pursuing, whether that maybe be in the classroom, any type of job that you may be working in, and things in that nature as well. So there's some pretty great benefits that have to come with just being a Gilman scholar, alumni altogether. But some tips I really want to be able to emphasize is really being able to understand how you can put together this compelling story about who you are, all of the past and present experiences you've had, and how the scholarship particularly will impact you and the future goals that you might have for yourself altogether. And that's something that I've really been able to learn more about when it came to just applying for the Gilman and just utilizing the resources that come with all of that as well. In addition to being able to start your application early. And this is so crucial because it gives you that edge to being able to work on your essays with all of the advisors or resources that you may have to offer with all of that, and really being able to really build the confidence within yourself to be able to apply for this scholarship, and just having that extra time, because it could be difficult for full-time students who have jobs and things of that nature to really schedule the time commitment to be able to apply for a scholarship like this. But starting early was one of the best things that I can attest to when it came to applying for this scholarship altogether. And for the other component about the Gilman Scholarship, it's not just potentially a scholarship, it's also an entire program in itself, and really understanding more about the follow-up service project. And this consists more of learning a little bit about understanding the community and local schools that you may be looking to work with or develop kind of a project around to really be able to give back to Gilman on the scholarship that they were able to fund for you for your particular study abroad or internship program. And this is a great way of being able to just tell different people in your community about how this scholarship program, changed your life and how you were able to go travel to this different country and learn all these amazing skills and really just, not make a difference for yourself, but also, the communities that you may have worked with when you were abroad. And it's a testament to really being able to understand what being, a global citizen really entails of, and how taking advantage of this scholarship was one of the highlights of my entire college career, because I felt so discouraged in the beginning to really be able to apply for the scholarship and wonder if I'd actually receive it or not. But I took advantage of the resources that I had to offer on campus, and it was one of the best things that I can honestly say that has happened to me. And I'm glad that I did it, because I never would have known what would have happened if I never took advantage of this opportunity. And now I get to represent Gilman in this amazing capacity and speak to everyone today about how, this Gilman Scholarship has really just changed my life, and how I want to be able to change the lives of others when it comes to anything that has to do with just applying to study abroad or intern abroad, or just participating in an overall just cultural exchange program.
Thanks, Nathaniel. And that concludes our presentation portion of today's session. I'm going to open the floor for questions, but also put our contact information up here on the screen if you would like to reach out to us after our presentation's over. And yeah, thanks so much. So over to you, Brittany.
Courtney, I think unfortunately you're gonna have to put up with me.
Oh, Carmen, hey, you're
no. You're fine. We had one great suggestion for you to include fellowship advisors on your slide of all of the different kinds of contact. So wanted to definitely share that tip with you. And while my colleagues are putting their questions in the chat, I think you talked a little bit about how students tell their story, and particularly how they deal with those moments when things didn't go as smoothly as they had hoped, or they had all of these different challenges to overcome. A question I often get from students is, where is the line that you recommend students find between telling this triumphant story of resilience and overcoming challenges and sort of just laying out a laundry list of problems, or making it feel like they're asking for your pity, or that somehow you should feel bad about all of these things that happen? Do you have advice on how students can navigate that line?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Carmen, because it can seem a little bit non-personal to an extent if they're just kind of listing out, oh, here's my challenge, here's my challenge, here's my challenge. But I think I like the line that you're talking about, and instead of it being a line that you cross, I think keeping it as a line that you use to weave for your story where you're coming from into why studying abroad or interning abroad really makes sense for you, and how the experiences that students have had shape where they're going, and how study abroad is a part of their, we can call it their line of life, so to say. So I think that in terms of disclosing information, students need to be comfortable with what they're sharing. So if they're not comfortable talking about certain things that have happened about them, or what they're looking to do, they shouldn't feel like they have to, or that's a requirement. But I think what is noticeable is a student's confidence when they write any sort of statement of purpose essay. So what I like about the Gilman essays is that they get students to really think more about their reasons why they're going abroad, and what they bring to the table, versus just, oh, what is this opportunity for me? I want to do it, so I'm going to do it. I want to eat this great food that I've heard about. I want to see these great sites. But it makes students dig even deeper into themselves, where they've come from, to show where they're going and how they're bringing what they've learned from the past, and who they are, to where they're going. So hopefully that, yeah, helps to visualize that line a little bit differently.
That's great advice. I'm also curious, and Nathaniel, if you don't mind sharing, what your family said when you announced that you wanted to go abroad. Have a number of people traveled in your family, or were you the first one? And what advice you would have for advisors to pass on to their students who maybe never had anybody even think about getting on a plane and going that far?
Oh yeah, of course. So when I first brought this kind of plan to my parents, they were a bit skeptical about it, just because of the fact that, me going to like a different part of the world and not really knowing too much about what exactly it entailed of kind of scared them a little bit. But overall, I was able to kind of persuade them in a way that this experience contributes to not just my development as a student, but my development as a person. And the cultural aspect of that as well was a great way for me to be able to instill in them why this experience was so important to just not even me just growing as a student, but of course as a person and as a leader altogether. So it took a little bit of time, but ultimately I was really able to help them understand more about, this is school related. I got into this program that's going to help me fund my entire experience and all these other different things as well. And they were able to feel a little bit more lenient to me going abroad, even though I was able to do it for my initial plans. I was going to do, an in-person experience, but because of the pandemic, it did change things a little bit. But that's kind of the advice that I would give if, if there's any student that may be kind of nervous or skeptical on telling their parents about like, hey, I got this scholarship to go to this program in this part of the world. It's really just really emphasizing the importance to why this particular program that you're going on is going to help you grow, like as a student, as a leader, and just as an overall person. And studying abroad is the one thing that every alumni has spoken to me about it. It was the best thing that ever happened to them during their college career. And I always try to emphasize that whenever I talk to students, even advisors, about just studying abroad and really pushing students to take on that opportunity altogether.
Yeah,
I agree 10,000%. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Carmen. On our website, we also have a resource page for parents. So we have some great information about study abroad, and answers about maybe some common questions that they have. So if parents are looking to help their students go abroad, why students should apply for Gilman, the benefits of it, as well as, of course, many parents are very concerned about health and safety abroad. So we have more information on our website about that too. But the Gilman website has a wealth of resources, including information for parents.
It's almost as if you knew that that's part of this decision-making process. One other question, and then we'll wrap it up. Nathaniel, if you don't mind, could you tell us about your follow-on service project and what you think was different about what you proposed and how you pulled it off and what the time commitment was, and a little bit more about that in case students might have questions?
Oh, yes, of course. So my initial plans for my follow-up service project was to speak to the student organizations I was involved in at the time about the Gilman Scholarship and kind of presenting the resources that we had on campus to support students who actually apply for the Gilman. So I was actually still able to do that, but kind of in a different way. I was able to work with some of the advisors that we had on campus that were promoting the Gilman and doing workshops, and I was able to help them kind of emphasize like how the Gilman changed my life and how it would do the same thing for the students that were attending these workshops. So even though I wasn't really able to speak to the organizations that I wanted to in person from the way that I structured my initial follow-up project, I was still able to kind of give back in the way that I did when it came to just popping into, an info session that was happening and just emphasizing like, how the Gilman changed my life and how I think it can do the same thing for them. And also being that additional resource, being able to maybe mentor a student or work with them on how to apply for the Gilman, what they might need help with and things like that as well. In addition to applying to be a Gilman alumni ambassador as well, because I felt like I didn't give back in the way that I wanted to because of the pandemic. So applying for this ambassadorship really has given me a way to actually do that in a much larger scale altogether.
We appreciate you sharing your story and your journey with us here today.
Of course.
I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat, so I want to thank Courtney and Nathaniel so much for sharing all of your great insights and your wisdom. Brittany, thank you for setting up this opportunity to share the Gilman with even more advisors in the PISA network. And thanks to our advisors for joining us here today. We hope you'll stay in touch and join us for future APSIA webinars, notably the one on November 3rd about the Clark Diplomatic Security Fellowship. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, wherever you find yourself, and take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Yeah.